What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another Animous review. And today we are going to be reviewing all of these three air compressors for airbrushing. Now, I decided to do this review based on the fact that I've already been using these airbrushes and air compressors for a long time, and I decided to just do a review because some of you asked me, "Hey, Animous, what kind of airbrush compressor should I get if I'm starting to airbrush?" Well, today I'm going to answer all those questions, as I have three different starter airbrush compressors here, or air compressors. So we're going to go through the specs and everything for each one of them, and then we'll see which one I believe will be the best for starting the hobby, or any hobby that requires airbrushing for that matter. Now, granted, please keep in mind that this is just my opinion. Everybody's going to have their own opinion based on, the products that they have. I do have other air compressors that I currently use here. However, these are the most budget friendly. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start this video. Now, before we get started, I want to remind you guys of some things. One, whenever you guys are choosing your compressor or air compressor, you're not just looking at the price, but you're also looking at things like, whether or not it has a tank, whether it comes with accessories, what's more budget friendly for what I'm looking for. Well, I'm going to be honest with you, it's all going to be coming down to preference. However, some of the things, when people recommend some stuff, is because they've already ran to the experience, and this is one of those. Like, I am going to recommend some of these products based on my experience on what I went through when I first started, right? So there's another few compressors that I'm not going to have on the channel, which is going to be battery powered, or one of those portable small blocky ones. I don't have any of those. Or if you're looking into like air tanks, I don't have any of those either. So the like the disposable ones, we're not gonna have those on the channel. I know that the motorized ones work well for what they are. However, this is more for somebody that's stationary and they don't like taking their stuff anywhere. Now I am not saying that the portable blocky ones, the little mechanical ones or electrical ones that they come in, are not good. I am not saying that whatsoever. They are good for what they are, and they work fine until some extent. More advanced or experienced builders will always tell you different. However, if you're a beginner builder, you got to work with your budget. You got to work with what's best for you and will work best for you at the time. My recommendations don't necessarily mean it's going to be somebody else's recommendations. Everybody's going to have their own opinion. Now, with that being said, there's a couple of things that you're going to look for when you're looking for a compressor. First thing on the list is going to be price. You want to make sure that the price point is right, and you want to make sure you don't overspend on that if you're going to have to spend on other materials. 2, does the air compressor come in a bundle, or does it come with any additional accessories? You also have to bring that into account just in case it plays into your budget, or if you find something that's of similar value with the same products. Number 3, does the air compressor have a tank, or doesn't it have a tank? All of these things that you look for in a compressor, you should always look for those types of details and what the price point is going to be. 4, availability. Is the air compressor easily available or replaceable in case you have to replace it, whether it's damaged or not? Now, the first compressor we're going to talk about is going to be your standard air compressor. Now, these compressors don't come usually with accessories or with a tank, but they do come with a valve and the water trap, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, the biggest thing with these compressors is that the biggest concern that a lot of people have is that it overheats. Now, I'm going to tell you something about that. So the reason why a lot of people worry that if it overheats is because they only have one fan. Now, the biggest thing with these Airbrush air compressors is that these, as they do not have a tank, they run continuously. And being someone that does a lot of builds and paints for a long time throughout the day, it can become very, very worrisome, and this can become super hot to the point where it might fail. Now, don't get me wrong, this one's still functional. This was actually my first compressor that I had years ago. Mind you, back when I bought it, the price was a little lower. I think I got it for like $45, but I think they're now ranging from like $65 to like $80, depending on where you buy it. Now, one thing that I want to talk about is going to be that prices may vary on these Airbrush air compressors, and the biggest reason why I said that I don't have one of the small ones, portable ones or compact ones, is because they almost cost the same. So when you buy these air compressors through Amazon or through any other store that might have them available, sometimes these air compressors might come with accessories. They might bring a few, you know, no branded airbrushes or something like that. And that's completely fine. Now, mind you, this is not a terrible starting point. Whenever you are on a budget and you want to start airbrushing, this is not bad at all. I know people right now that only use this compressor to do big jobs like Gundam, you know, the Gunpla Builders World Cup, for example. I know someone that painted their whole kit with an air compressor like this. So when you're buying these types of compressors, you should always count for the fact that it might overheat. So if you're trying to get an air compressor that doesn't overheat, then you're probably looking at one of the others that we're going to talk about soon. So with those air compressors, they are very standard. They don't come with any accessories if you try to buy them like outright just by themselves. Sometimes whenever you buy them in one of those kits that they sell through Amazon, they might bring some, you know, air brushes and some hoses and other accessories for a little bit more cash. All that is to me is smoke and mirrors. I know that some people say that, well, you know, for the value and the money that I had and my budget. Look, if you have a budget to buy an airbrush, just hold off on buying an airbrush until you can get something that you're really going to be comfortable with. Now, another issue that having an air compressor like this is that you can experience pulsing when you are airbrushing. Pulsing means that the air pressure that is running through your line might not be as consistent as you might like, and that could bring problems whenever you are spraying a little bit of thicker paints, where you might get some sort of sputter effect when you are spraying your paints. So let's go ahead and connect this air compressor and connect the hose to it, and then I'll show you more details on it. Right, so now that the air compressor is turned on, I want to explain something from this, right? So once it's turned on, it will charge up to pressurize around the hose, and then it'll stop. Mind you, some people make the mistake to think that these have a really big tank inside. They do not, okay? They just hold a little bit of air, and all the additional air is then ran through the hose, okay? So the one thing that you're gonna like about these air compressors are gonna be the portability. Yes, they do not have a tank. However, they're very portable, and you can take them anywhere because they don't occupy that much space. Now, one thing that I want you to see is the fact that, you know, once you're spraying with your airbrush, then the tank itself will start running and running and running as you're using your airbrush. See? As soon as I started using my airbrush, it just cranked on. Even though you get a consistent airflow, it is not really convenient for people that either, you know, get headaches and they don't like the noise, or they're in a room where they need to be as quiet as possible. Then having an air compressor that makes so much noise, because trust me, this is very loud. So if you're trying to be quiet while you're painting and try to not have your air compressor turn on as many times, that is not going to happen with this. Yes, again, I am saying that these are great compressors for the price and starting point. However, I'm touching it right now and I just used it for a little while and it's not warm yet. But if you keep using it, if you keep pressing the button and it keeps running and running and running while you keep painting and painting and painting, then it's going to become an issue and it's going to get overheated. But that's pretty much it for this compressor. Now, granted, like I said, price points are good and availability is great because they are available, readily available as well. So if you are looking for an airbrush compressor that doesn't have a tank and you just want something portable that you could just take to like your build days or something like that, then something like this might be convenient for you. So you don't have to carry a giant compressor. The other options that you have that are similar to this is going to be the little square boxed ones. So let's go ahead and disconnect this compressor and then move on to the second compressor on the list. All right, so the next compressor we're going to have on the list is going to be the Gaahleri air compressor. Now, we've already done a review on this compressor before, so if you haven't seen it, go ahead and check that out. So for this compressor, the standard features for this compressor is that it has a 1-liter tank. It's a little bit bigger than your normal compressor compared to the other one. Aside from that, it also has an auto start, auto stop, and it has quiet performance. So we are going to go ahead and turn it on to, you know, test that out, of course, and then go from there. The features that are going to be different from the other air compressors that we just showed. The first thing is going to be, it has a cover. So these covers, I'm going to tell you right now, these are all aesthetics. It's not really that serious. However, some of these are functional, like this one, for example. In this case, it does have the two stands for the airbrush that are right here. It also has two different valves set up for dual airbrush setups. Now let's go ahead and turn it on. As you can see, it just charged the 1 liter air tank, and it does have its benefits. One, with the tank being there, then you run into less issues when starting and stopping due to the fact that it does it less than your basic airbrush air compressor. So I do have my airbrush here, so we're gonna go ahead and see how long will it take to start. Now, as you can see, it did take a while before it decided to start. Now, I do want to mention that this air compressor is a lot quieter than the other air compressor that we just used. And being as it brings all these accessories and its price point compared with the other one, I believe that this is the better choice. If you have to go with either the first one that I showed or this one, this will probably be the better purchase, even if it is a little bit higher there in price. So now, I do want to mention that even though some of these air compressors do have tanks, that does not mean that you cannot use them continuously. The one thing that is going to change is that you already have air in the tank, and when it starts running low, the compressor itself turns on to try and fill up the tank as it's being emptied. So by all means, if you need to keep spraying or finish spraying a part and then you want to let it refill, then that's fine, but that does not mean you have to stop. I believe that this air compressor is good for what it is. Again, I am impartial when it comes to all my reviews. For between this one and the first one that I showed you, this is the better compressor because it does have other features. It does have two valves, it does have the stands, it does have the tank, even if it is a small tank, and it is still portable. It does have a handle that you can carry it everywhere you go, and it's fine. It's not that heavy, so I think it's a good air starting point for somebody that's starting into the airbrush hobby. For the cons that have to do with this air compressor, well, being as it is an air compressor, it does have a 1 liter tank. Having a small tank is convenient to some extent, but it's inconvenient for somebody like me that likes to paint for long hours and periods of time. Now, the cons to having an airbrush that has a smaller tank is going to be almost the same as the first airbrush that I showed you. Is going to be the overheating or maybe pulsating from the PSI. Those are things that you got to watch out for when you have compressors like these that have either small tanks or don't have tanks at all. This airbrush air compressor definitely works and gets the job done, but we're going to talk about another air compressor that I have here, which is also a good air compressor for starting point. So let's go ahead and get right to that one. Now, next up on the table, we do have the Coolie Tooty from Spraygunner. This is from their no name line. Now, this item was not sent to us for review. We actually went out and purchased it because some of you requested that you wanted to see how this compressor performed aside from other compressors that I have, and this is the result. Being as the compressor that it is now, this compressor did surprise me out of the box. Now, I did get it while they were having it on sale. So I know that it right now is going on for like probably around $140, give or take, but they do have free shipping on the site. So it's a little, you know, I guess it offsets itself a little bit. Now, biggest thing that I want you to know about this air compressor is that this air compressor has a 3 liter tank, and not only does it have a 3 liter tank, it also does have 2 fans that cool the air compressor itself. It does have 1 and 2. Now, some might believe that because of the added hardware, it might be a really loud air compressor. On the contrary, I think that this one competes in silence with my Iwata one, so it's a little bit closer to that one when it comes to being silent. Now, granted, it's not all pros with this compressor. It does have its, nicks here and there, but we'll go through them in a second. Now, features that this Airbrush air compressor have is that it has a 3-liter tank. It has 2 fans for that extra cooling. It does have the pressure valve for you whenever you're trying to set your PSI, and it does have your water trap. Now, this tank does have a valve on the other side, which you can pull on whenever you're trying to empty out the tank, which I recommend after every use. Now, one thing that I do want to mention about this air compressor is that aside from all these features, it has that continuous flow from that 3-liter tank. Really does help you when you're trying to spray at those lower PSIs, when you're trying to get that finer detail when you're spraying. Now, let's go ahead and turn it on and listen to how silent it is. All right, so now that we've had times for this tank to fill up, one thing that I want to mention is that if you are working with a compressor, an air compressor that has a tank, you have to make sure that you allot enough time to get filled out. Now, we were talking before about the fact that you can just keep using an air compressor even if the compressor turns on while you also have a tank, because it's just trying to keep that continuous air pressure. And the biggest thing with this air compressor is that aside from the fact that it has a tank, it also has a cooling fan. It has 2 cooling fans that will cool the compressor itself. So that for me is an actual pro when it comes to this compressor. Now let's go ahead and press the airbrush to see how long it will last if we were spraying. I believe I have it set to 20 psi, which is an average of what everybody sprays normally. So let's go ahead and try to see how long it takes before the airbrush itself decides, the airbrush compressor itself decides to turn on. And this is the advantage of having a big tank when it comes to your air compressor. Now, I don't feel like I don't think that it will keep going for too long, but we can just go ahead and verify. So now that we've seen the differences between the air compressors when it comes to airbrushing, I do want to mention that each airbrush air compressor will have different applications depending on that. Now, of course, budget will play a lot into this. Now, this video is just a video for you guys to be able to see an example of the different kind of airbrush air compressors that are budget friendly for those of you that are beginning in the hobby. Now, whether or not I can recommend any of these, I guess it would just depend on the budget that you currently have. If you're somebody that's just staying at home and airbrushing at home, then this could be also a great option for you. I can say for sure that the Gaahleri Airbrush air compressor works fine. However, I've been also using this one, and this one has been working great so far as well. So just keep that in mind whenever you are buying your first air compressor. Take all of that into account, whether or not you're going to need a tank, whether or not you're going to move your air compressor back and forth, if you're going to travel with it or whatever. All of that comes into play when you're buying your compressor. Now, and that is it for today's video. If you guys like my content, feel free to like and subscribe for my content. Hit the like button, maybe leave a comment. Tell me, what air compressor do you currently have? Do you like your current air compressor? Do you have any of these that I've shown in this video? And then we'll go from there. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.